Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Hi, everyone. We're back with another Week in Privacy episode. Guests are on the horizon, but for now, we're still catching you up on all the news, especially this week. A lot of stories related around children's data, but also medical laboratory hacks, highways, and some other fun stories for you to ponder while the summer ticks away. As always, my name is Paul Breitbart.
My name is Ralph O'Brien.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. Unexpected question. I got two. One of them I really like, but I may have to go with the second. I really like this one. What takes a lot of time, but is totally worth it?
That sounds like a riddle.
Sleeping?
The answer is the Serious Privacy podcast, right?
Absolutely true. And to echo that, actually, we received an email earlier today from one of our listeners who said that they are really happy with the podcast. And of course, we love to hear that, but especially in this situation, because they were preparing to take the SIP US exam and have used the podcast as a resource in preparation to listen to all of you discussing the complexity in privacy and data protection and all the moving parts in your own individual but a unified way has been admirable. That's really nice to hear. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And not the first time that we've heard that there are people that studying for exams, they use us as one of their resources, which is pretty cool. And the only hint or the only two hints I'll give you about studying for IAPP exams, and maybe I'll ask y'all's for y'all's best hint too, is one, if it is especially the CIPM, use IAPP's language. They use specific language through the book that if you go with your real life experience, you might flunk the exam. So make sure that you are using the language that they have in the book for the exam. And then two, you know something. Now, this goes to my advice on all polka dot questions. You know, question you got to fill out a polka dot for an answer. You know something. If you have to think about an answer and say, if I did this or I did that would be true, something. Go with the one you know is a fact.
And statistically, you are more likely to change a right to a wrong than a wrong to a right. So go with your gut.
Yes, especially in the final 5 minutes of an exam.
Just draw a pretty polka dot, connect the dots exam on your paper. I don't think they do paper anymore. Random is good.
Yeah, one of my top tips is to always go back to their common body of knowledge and use that as a ticker across. Do I know this? Do I know this? Do I know that? And if you can use the syllabus or the common body of knowledge, depending on whatever exam you're doing, as a checklist to guide your revision, that's the main thing. But referring to, I've just had a thought on your what takes a long time but is totally worth it. I'm currently baking a cake.
Oh.
What kind of cake?
Actually, today is just a lemon curd of whipped cream and strawberries.
Right.
It's just a vanilla sponge with a little bit of zest in it.
I like it.
Sounds good. When is it ready? How late should we be at your place?
I've got an assistant here who is currently heading to check on the oven as we speak. So.
Nice. My mama's birthday was yesterday and we couldn't bake a cake. So we went and bought birthday cake pops. Birthday cake. Is that what they're called? Cake pops? They're like little bitty circles of birthday cake and you stick a little stick in it and frost it.
That's very American.
Okay, there we go. Fine.
Cake should just be a big thing where you just have big slices instead of something small on a stick.
My mama's making me some red beans and rice right now, so we're just going to leave it right there.
So nice.
Yes.
Okay, what's new this week? Ralph.
Yeah, what's happening? There's some cool stories we've come across, I think, that are going to drive the development of today's podcast, right?
Yeah, we have actually got some good guests lined up, and I am conscious we've been a few episodes without them, but there's always just too much going on in the news. And actually, that's really impressive in Europe in August.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most people give up and go home in August, or give up and go on holiday, either way. Over in the UK, there's a lot still going on about age verification, and I'm sure you're all sick to the teeth of me talking about it now. But again, I think the conclusion now on the Online Safety Act and its age verification parts is a lot of people are calling it performative. If you're a small provider, you're kicked out of business because you can't afford the age verification technology. If you're a large organization, you're then impinging on people's privacy, or people are just using VPNs to head outside of the UK or pretend they're outside of the UK. And then you get calls for banning VPNs.
Will this become something like the cookie banners where everybody just clicks something to get rid of it?
Yeah, potentially. I've actually had news from one of my own kids that they managed to get through the Discord one just by finding a random picture they downloaded off the internet.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, so there we go. Apparently they just typed in adult woman.
Okay, so it's a bit more difficult than clicking yes, but not that much more difficult.
Yeah, but actually there is a little bit of news on this for a bit wider afield. The IEEE, for those people that don't know, that's the actual institute that creates standards for the internet, IEEE. The IE Standards Association has released 2 guidelines. One about age-appropriate sites for children, and the other about trying to verify people's age online, including a certification program as well. So we're seeing a lot more focus on children, age-appropriate design, protecting the rights of children, age assurance, and how we can do that with a high degree of accuracy. And actually, I've got some personal evidence that my 18-year-old actually did try and use the age verification service, but it didn't work because they are actually technically 18, but the age assurance service wasn't accurate enough to determine that based on their face, brought it back inconclusive. So it was very difficult to verify someone's age over the internet. And then you've got things like VPNs and the ability of people to use masks and AI and all sorts of interesting stuff as well. I actually think, myself, rather than using technology, education and engagement is probably a much better way of doing things. And you actually sit down and have conversations with people. I've always said to my kids, there's no stopping them looking at adult content on the internet. It's there and in their face, but they have to realize perhaps that it's, in some cases, not much more reflective of the real world than Star Wars is as entertainment, right? Trying to have an interesting and adult conversation, but there are 6 indicators they use to rate the systems in the IEEE methodology: accuracy, frequency of assurance. Do you do it once or do you do it every visit? Counter fraud measures. So how do you stop people getting past? Authenticity. So how do you prove that any documentation is genuine? How do you authenticate what you receive? Do you have a connection with a passport or the driving license office? And then good old birth date, which I'm sure no one has ever.
Nobody ever lies on the birth date, including those of us who are of legal age but don't want to give our real birth date to a social media company or an online company here. But it is challenging because a couple episodes back, we did one as well that talked about the FTC here in the United States, which oversees enforcement of COPPA, has to approve age verification processes. And they continue to reject these technology-driven ways of verifying age. There are third parties who have shown up that you can do it. And so it's a really fascinating read. If you go to the FTC site on COPPA enforcement, you look at the requests that they've received, image verification, facial biometrics, I think they traditionally reject as a valid simply because companies would be collecting more money than they could. So if you look at the ways of actually verifying age, they want you to provide a credit card. How many kids have credit cards?
None, because you're only allowed to get a credit card when you're 18.
And then there's some interesting things about what you even categorize and what websites you categorize. Spotify has put on age verification, and Spotify is a music website. And yes, there are music with adult lyrics, I suppose, but that doesn't mean you've got to verify everybody who comes into your store.
And there are podcasts with a lot of adult content on there as well.
Yeah.
True.
And they're considered general use sites. And unless they're directed towards general use sites, they're not required to have it.
Here we are talking about some sensitive issues ourselves. Actually, some of the fears are also about freedom of speech and actually not giving people the support they need. For example, there's a lot of LGBTQ material that gets classified as adult content. Then if you are 15, 14, worrying about your sexual identity or your gender identity, you then can't go and get the support you need because it's age gated to 18-year-olds.
Right.
Just because it's LGBT doesn't mean it's sexual in any way.
No, that's true.
There's some very interesting stuff going on there as well. And actually, I noticed on the IEE, they were talking about the Greeks quite well, and the fact that the Greek Prime Minister and the Five Rights Foundation held a global forum on AI this month in Athens. And of course, regulation on the design of online systems was a major topic, including the mental health of children and teenagers. And the Greece have launched a strategy to protect minors online. So I'm going to use that as a tenuous link to jump to something I saw on the EDPB website, which was that the Greek regulator has imposed a fine on an organization called the Shield of David, which is actually an organization for autism in minors, in children. Looks like a case submitted to the Hellenic Supervisory Authority because they failed to satisfy the rights of access exercised by the complainant to CCTV footage. And the findings is, yes, they didn't satisfy the right of access to the CCTV footage, but also that they transmitted special category data of the child to other companies without prior notification and consent of the parents, which also included proportionality issues as well, because they disclosed the intervention program, the medical report, the full social history on the child's admissions to the therapeutic program, and also disclosed to the single court of the first instance a large number of recipients. So an administrative fine of only €3,000, I suppose for a charity, that might be considered proportionate there, and another 3,000 for the transmission data without informing, and another 3,000 for the transmission to the court on the other, plus 1,000 for not cooperating with the regulator.
So that's all in all is 10K, which for charity is a lot of money.
Yes, you are looking at 10K there, but broken down 3, and 1. So yeah, really interesting fine there from the Greek Supervisory Authority. And Paul, I believe you had another fine from the Supervisory Authority to discuss?
Yes, there is a fine of €420,000 imposed in Italy on the company Autostrade per l'Italia, which is the company that runs all the Italian highways and especially the toll roads. They have been found to unlawfully process employees' private social media messages and also using them to justify disciplinary action and dismissal without any valid legal basis for that processing. They did not inform the employee. There was nothing in a policy that they could do this. Allegedly, there were screenshots from Facebook and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger shared with the employer. Not completely clear from the story what exactly the employee would have done that warranted such behavior from their employer. But a complaint was filed to the Garante, and they said, no, this is a serious contravention, even if it's only related to one individual. So the fine was imposed, again, €420,000, which is about $500,000, plus an order for cease and desist any further unlawful processing of personal data from employees' private digital communications, removing the information from their system, revising internal data protection procedures to ensure that this does not happen again, and if it is needed, that the processing of social media or messaging information is based on does have a lawful basis, that it's fully transparent, that there is also a proper framework to actually use it, and also to make sure that there is proper accountability for these kind of policies.
That's nice, actually. I do like it when a regulator not only just issues an administrative penalty, but also hits enforcement notices to make sure these things don't happen again.
A fine is always just to satisfy the wrong that happened in the past, but it isn't forward-looking. So indeed, I agree. It's always good if a supervisory authority looks ahead at what's coming next and also trying to influence future data processing. So I think that's really important. Before going back to children's data, because there are a few things there on the US side as well, there is one more story here in the Netherlands that's currently on the news every single day already this week. And that is a major hack in a medical laboratory that happened likely in June, but only came to light this week. It's a laboratory called Clinical Diagnostics. They were hacked by a known ransomware group called Nova. By now, it's also confirmed that ransom has been paid, but Nova has stolen allegedly around 300 gigabytes of medical data from all kinds of tests from people from all over the country, including about 500,000 women who've participated in the National Cervical Cancer Screening Program. So that's a program run by the government where women between the age of 30 and 60 are tested on a regular basis to see whether there are early indications for cervical cancer. And there are 3 laboratories across the country that run these tests. And this is one of the 3, the one that was hacked. Some of the information has surfaced on the dark web, where it is clear that name, home address, national identification number, and some medical information, such as the results of the tests, have been included there. The data set that was published, which is around 100 megabyte, about 50,000 patients' information, includes information from a member of parliament and a government minister. This is a pretty serious breach, and there are still a lot of questions. For example, why the laboratory didn't report this a lot sooner. And this will probably continue because there are some really strong investigative journalists looking into this and finding out more information on what has happened and what the consequences could be. But fact is that a lot of medical information has now surfaced on the dark web. And as Kay explains in recent episodes, there's almost nothing you can do. You cannot just change your national identification number. You cannot change your medical data. So for that to surface and be used by criminals maybe to target you when you are already vulnerable, to extort you, to mislead you, that's pretty horrible.
Yeah, privacy is one of those things that you can't often put things back in the box. Once something's known, it cannot be unknown, right? So, of course, our heart goes out to those people, most definitely. And if there's an MP in there, the cynic in me says at least something will get done.
To some extent, probably yes. At the same time, again, there is not a lot that can be done. Apparently, the government entity responsible for these national screenings had done their homework and had all the contracts in place, had the proper security verification. So, of course, that is also the paper-based reality of compliance, right? If you have all the documentation, how far can you go to actually go into your processor's databases and do all the audits? That's almost impossible as well.
Yeah, no security is 100%. All you can do is do your best.
That's right. And the criminals will always be ahead of us, which is why we chase them.
Exactly. That's also what we see in a lawsuit that's happening in the US. Kay, turning it to you. A family suing Roblox and Discord over the kidnapping of a 10-year-old girl. And that's not the first time. I think there are 4 similar cases running now for somebody who's been grooming minors through these apps, through these platforms. What do you have about that?
Yes, apparently this is the 7th similar lawsuit brought against Roblox, brought by this particular law firm, which is Anapol Weiss. Last couple of weeks ago now that they did it. And they say it's the 7th such lawsuit brought by this law firm, which they say underscores a pattern of systemic a pattern of systemic negligence and failure to protect child users. So someone was able to pose as a child, get to contact the girl through Roblox, conversation then moved to Discord. where apparently she was groomed and manipulated into sharing her home address. I'm going to tell y'all, there's not a lot of work it takes to get a child to share their address. My children were coached not to share their address online, which they did, and they created these fake, hold on now, MySpace accounts. And one was from Hawaii and one was from Mississippi. Neither one of them gave their locations, but then they posted an invitation to their birthday party online, which gave the actual picture of the house and where the kids would be and your address. It doesn't take much. So when you hear groom and manipulate, just know that children are so trusting, especially this girl. She was 10 years old, I believe. So they did find her several hundred miles away, multi-agency search. However, I do want to give some statistics here because I know people with Roblox and I know people with Discord, and I know that they take privacy and protection very seriously. They have trust officers. They do this. As we just got through saying, nothing is perfect. And until you can start bringing some real sophisticated technology in to bear on these things, which I have another story I want to share with y'all on that. Unfortunately, what was it, Ralph, you said earlier? It takes having that open conversation with the kids too, right? Because kids, if they hear their parents talk about someone could kidnap you or someone could do this or that's not really another 10-year-old boy, they think parents are stupid and paranoid. We may be, but it doesn't mean what we say isn't true. But it was Roblox submitted 24,522 reports to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in 2024. Discord submitted 241,000 reports. Facebook submitted over 8.5 million reports. And Instagram over 3.3 million, TikTok 1.3 million, and Snapchat over 1.1 million.
I don't know if I think that's a lot or not.
Right? It's based on comparison to the number of users, right? Who knows? But it does not mean that these companies are not taking it seriously. They are taking it seriously. It's a very complex and complicated. Do I think it's horrible that adults can get on these sites and interact with children and wind up grooming and manipulating them? It's absolutely atrocious. But the only way to save your kids from it is not let them online.
And to educate them. I think that's also certainly part of it. And I'm not blaming parents here before somebody thinks that. But education and making sure that your children understand that there are bad people out there as well.
Yeah.
And that they indeed should not share everything. And if they have doubts whether somebody is nice or not, that they should come talk to you so that you can also step in and verify.
And this doesn't even go to the real, I know this is really bad, but talking about the sextortion and the texting and everything, and that they blackmail children into sending pictures, and then they blackmail them with those pictures saying they'll send them to their parents and their school if they don't do certain things. It really is a horrible situation out there. But in the midst of this horrible situation, there is a story from YouTube. I think it came out yesterday. So we're recording this on August the 13th. It was my 24th anniversary on Monday and my mother's birthday yesterday. So it's been a good week in some respects. Thank you. I might let them hang around for another 25 years or so. But YouTube says that it will begin testing today, apparently, a new age verification, not a new age verification, a new age verification system in the U.S. that relies on AI to differentiate between adults and minors based on the kind of videos that they've been watching. Now, if someone is an adult and wants to be treated as a kid, maybe they can start watching only kid videos. Like my granddaughter always wants to watch princess videos. Trust me, you go look at her history, it's princess videos. She does it sitting right next to me. There is no opportunity for her to engage with anybody. She has to be right next to me doing it. But it's interesting that they're going to start doing that. So that might be one thing that I start following this story to see, because it says if the system flags a logged-in viewers being under 18, YouTube will impose the controls for children as a way to prevent minors from watching the videos. But they do include taking breaks from screen time, privacy warnings, restrictions on video recommendations, and probably some sort of trust monitoring of any type of chat history or removing the chat from it. So I think those would be really interesting to follow that story and see how it works. But is horrendous that these things happen. And unfortunately, the children are typically more savvy with technology and online services than their parents are.
This is true. Yeah. Yeah. You talk about parents, you should engage and protect the kids. Often the parents really struggle to gain an idea of what the kids had. I do remember when my own kids were in their early teens, we used to have huge battles. It was like, my friends don't have time restrictions and my friends can download what they want and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, Tim being IT, we had keylogger software on the girls' computers. It was interesting. We told them, if you write it on paper and you put it under your bed, I will not go read it unless I have reasonable grounds for suspicions that you're doing something really bad. Then I will go read it. Otherwise, write it on paper, put it under your bed. Your privacy is assured unless there's a reason not to be. You put it on that computer, me and Tim, and they called him their Tim at the time, me and Tim will have a way to find out what you're putting online. And then they acted all shocked that we did keyboard logging on them. We're like, seriously? We even told you.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's that balance to be had about trying to treat someone as an adult and let them make their own mistakes, but protecting them at the same time. And that line's going to change depending on the age they are as well. There's technically you're a child right up until you're 18 or 21 in some jurisdictions. So.
Yeah, it does vary. And then there's also the rules that cross the barriers of age when it comes to health decisions and different things like that, which is definitely up for argument here in the U.S. right now. I think there was a doctor arrested for doing an abortion on a 10-year-old child who had been raped and was wound up pregnant. And the doctor said, I'll go to jail for it.
Yeah, what a terrible situation for everybody.
Absolutely horrible. So we're not dealing with simple situations here.
No.
Nobody is, and there's no one to blame except for the bad actors.
But I think I had that conversation on the last podcast we did. If you design every system to deal with bad actors, you end up penalizing the 99% of people who are doing it correctly.
Yep.
It's so hard, isn't it? Because you want to protect people from the awful things that are out there. But at the same time, if you do, then you make the platforms really hard to use for the 99% of people who are doing good stuff.
That's true. But then on the other side, if you do open up the platforms, as I agree, that would be the wise way forward, then you would also need to ensure that you have some form of content moderation, especially when you know that these platforms can be misused by bad actors. And that does not have to be a human being who reads along with every chat conversation. You can do that based on keywords, use technology to find the right triggers. And of course, criminals will always try to avoid those triggers as well, but that will go a long way. And then have human verification, of course, to see whether code language is being used or whether it's actual language that is being used.
Block things in chat windows that look like email addresses, phone numbers.
There are some simple things to do. If you're going to use technology to innovate and make money, then use a compensating quality of technology to keep people safe on your platform.
And make sure that there is proper logging in place, that you also know where people are logging in from, despite the fact that they may be using VPNs, but that at least there are proper logs of connections, maybe also that you can link multiple accounts together, because that's also not unheard of, that people have one real account and then one account for something else. But if they can be linked together, multiple accounts through IP address or other kinds of technology, then you also have more evidence to say, hey, this is not somebody who's a minor talking to a minor. This is actually somebody who should not be talking to this individual.
And take all the lessons that we've learned about tracking people online for marketing and profiling purposes and turn that immense body of knowledge into a way of being able to identify bad actors. We don't track them just through IP addresses. We have all kinds of device fingerprinting and hack back URLs and different things that companies are using, data brokers. We hate data brokers, but data brokers are using to actually track people and profile them and make business decisions on. Let's use that immense body of knowledge that was learned there and take it to how do we now identify bad actors targeting children.
Talking about bad actors and surveilling bad actors, I think my final story for the day is again from the UK. the police, the constabularies here are rolling out more live facial recognition vans. 10 new vans across 7 police forces, which scan faces of people walking past to check them against a list of wanted people.
Oh, we hate that stuff.
And these are used for peaceful demonstrations, people demonstrating pro-Palestinian rights or people saying that fundamental rights should be respected or that there should be an end in the war in Ukraine or things like that, peaceful demonstrations like that, and then a van like that shows up.
Yeah, I mean, it's for every use that could be considered positive to protect society, there's a more chilling, authoritarian uses of these technology as well. I don't know whether I'm against the technology wholesale, but I'm certainly against it being expanded in its use in all but the most serious or targeted ways. If someone's got a specific, you're looking for, I don't know, we've often seen it used on the way to football matches to target ticket touts or specific violent people on the terraces. Again, you're going to be capturing 999 innocent people for every one guilty people. So the technology is going to be incredibly intrusive. And
it's much easier to search for 10 specific people. You scan everyone's faces looking for 10 specific people. That's a much, much easier deployment than scanning everyone's face and for anyone that could be on any bad list anywhere, right? So we've seen ways that these can go right and ways that they can go wrong. We're not the people that throw up the flag and say, thou shalt not do this, because technology is technology, right? There's good ways and bad ways.
Yeah, at the same time, if proper boundaries are in place on the use of these vans, it could actually be in line with case law, because the Court of Justice in Strasbourg, which also applies still their case law in the UK, has said that it is illegal to surveil all of the people all of the time. But that if you put in place certain boundaries, for example, only for a limited duration and for a limited purpose, it would be allowed to do this, as long as those guardrails are indeed in place, and as long, and then that would be my question to you, Ralph, as long as there is transparency. Are these unmarked vans or are these marked vans? Is there signage in the streets saying there is facial recognition going on here?
The famous case in the UK is called the South Wales judgment, which is the South Wales constabulary on the way to the football match. And they got in a lot of trouble because they didn't do a DPAA and they didn't put up signage and all of that kind of stuff. And we actually do have our own regulator here called the Biometrics and Surveillance Camera Commissioner, who isn't the ICO, who deals with public sector use of body-worn cameras and surveillance cameras and facial recognition cameras. BBC Verify have got onto this. Now, BBC Verify is a sort of a part of the BBC News channel that looks at essentially fake news and verifying that things are not fake news, kind of
fake news,
the fact-checking part of the BBC. And so they're going to do a report into it. They've actually gone to the 7 constabularies that have implemented live facial recognition, and they've asked for statistics. How many people have you arrested? And how many of them have led to a conviction, et cetera, et cetera? How many people have you done falsely arrested? On the 6th of August, there was actually a case of a man who was wrongly identified by a live facial recognition, 39-year-old gentleman of black ethnic origin, who was accused of being, let's just say, paedophile, rapist, violent robbery. And he said that his experience of being stopped was intimidating and aggressive. Every time he now walks across the London Bridge, he thinks of that moment. And he was arrested, and it came out falsely. We've also talked about facial recognition, face swats from people who have been falsely accused of shoplifting on this channel before as well. It is an intrusive power which requires, with any great power, it requires a great level of scrutiny and great levels of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like any new technology, I don't think it's a case of if it's going to be used, it is going to be used, but it's a case of what safeguards you put in place.
Very good. On that note, we'll wrap up another episode. Until next week.
It was a good one. See y'all.
See y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Serious Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on Nymity research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.